Hi, greetings. This is Brian Fields, amateur radio call sign, W9CR. And I've been involved with ASL here for a bit. Whoop. I'm streaming from my laptop tonight, so it's not optimal. Apologize for that. But there's been quite a few, lies, misrepresentations, falsehoods told about the admin team of AllStarLink, and I'd like to clear some of that up. I'm almost disgusted at how the project's gone. It's kind of sad for me, but I made a little presentation here. I'm going to do Q&A after, so I will look at the chat, but I am going to be doing the presentation. And then I'll have 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A. It's about 30 minutes of presentation, maybe a little bit more than that as I talk through it here. I'm trying to give an overview of my involvement with ASL, kind of taking over after Jim passed. And not that I took over, but AllStarLink Incorporated taking over. Where the admin team was, where the dev team was, and then kind of how things got so fucked up. I mean, that's what you're all here for. That's what I'm here for, is to at least explain my side of it, because we have unfortunately some nefarious actors out there that want to represent things a little bit differently, and there's two sides to it, which is my side here. Hopefully we stream okay. I'll try and look here. So if audio isn't coming through or something doesn't sound right, please let me know. But I don't have multiple displays here set up. Well, I do, but again, it's not optimal. So this is a kind of a review of AllStarLink. It's the internal dysfunction. I've never really spoken about the internal stuff that's going on. When I was a board member, obviously that was internal. When I was involved in the admin team, that was internal. And recently, the things that have changed internally are, well, I'm no longer involved in the admin team. I've become so disgusted, I'm stopping providing hosting. And these things I wanted to be handled internally. And unfortunately, they were not. So that's why I feel the need to do this. Otherwise, I was just going to step away. So a little history of this, and we have basically 2017 was just a kind of figuring out what's going on, and I have quite a bit of this to go through, but I think, as most people know, in December of 2016, Jim passed, and Steve Zingman, who was running the project at the time, I mean, for the most part, it was still, Jim's project, but Steve had built AllStarLink under Debian, which was really good. That's the ASL, 1.0. Well, that's Dial, and then ASL 1.0. So I have kind of got into this. Steve reached out to me. He started AllStarLink as a company. I told him, I said, hey, we need to do an organization here. We can't just run it as a couple of guys now that it's just ASL. And he was in agreement with that. And I said, it'll give us a lot of benefit. But there was a lot of this admin work at the time to go through. And we had a unwrapped seal, which was the server in California that everything was running on. It was running on one single server. It was a clusterfuck. Jim had not put the level of commitment, well, no, that's the wrong way to say it. Jim had not put the time into it in the last few years because health issues for him, various things. He just really wasn't into it. So he was kind of happy that Steve was doing a lot of stuff. And get myself off there. So we had a lot going on. I had to get the list server migrated because that was on somebody else's server. Various other things like that. And there was also the the issue of, well, the stat server kept crashing. We were still trying to talk a lot. I spent, man, probably 20, 30 hours on the phone with John David McGough to try and get him, because as most people know, as soon as Jim died, that's when John David said, oh, I'm going to close source everything I'm doing right now and fuck the community. So that's what he did. And we got the basics of AllStarLink working here. So kind of what we subdivided into here was a board, a admin team, and a dev team. And from a legal requirement, the board had to be 3+ people because it was a Florida nonprofit corporation. And this is a very high level. I mean, this is 3 years of stuff to go through, so I'm giving the high level very, very quickly here. Essentially, the board does your business, your taxes, business filings, legal stuff, policy, non-technical stuff, so anything related to that. Like the Mozilla Foundation does a lot of great stuff like this, very, very similar. And there's a lot of foundations that are out there that do work in the open source community, so I figured this is an easy thing to look at. Kind of, see what they're doing and try to emulate. Resolve external issues, talk about stuff externally as well. And it's decidedly non-technical. This is where people that are involved, users, power users, whoever of the project, but have the business skills to help out can exist. And we split off then into an admin team, which was, as I said, and I told Steve and Kevin initially, I said, hey, let's get some other people involved. Let's set up, as a group to maintain the services. And then also the technical standards for ASL. So anything technical is going to be the admin team other than development. Anybody can join with the consent of the existing admin team. Not everybody on the admin team is going to do everything on the admin team, but we wanted enough people to cut down on the bus factor. If somebody gets hit by a bus, basically, at least one other person will understand what's going on. And it reports to the board, but it's independent. A couple other organizations I've been involved in took this approach, and I said, this is really the way to go here, so that the admin team does admin stuff and does the technical stuff and tells the board, hey, this is what we need, this is what we think is the best way to do something, and only if there's a consensus in the admin or the dev team should the board really get involved. Who's ever doing the work makes the decisions, or makes the best decisions. So the dev team, this is, principally one person I reached out to, and I won't name him by name, but he knows who he is, and he had done a lot of work with AppRPT when Jim was alive, and this was initially Steve Zingman doing a lot of this, but he stepped away from the project. So fixes bugs, tracks issues, things like that. So 2018 rolls around, we're having problems with the stat server. This keeps crashing and crashing and crashing. I have no idea why it's going. So John David claims to know something about this at the time. So we decide to, okay, yeah, let's work with him and see what we can do. And I said, okay, let's get a new server. I had a super micro that we were going to use, but it was unsuitable. So we said, well, let's figure out what to do for a server. I can colo it. I've had colo that's been online for, almost 20 years now. And we get it up and going. Essentially, it came I think on a Friday, and I had it racked and going, and VMs instantiated that Monday. It was pretty quick. So we waited on this through the holidays, through January, and John David did nothing. I gave him a login and everything, nothing happened. And let's see, you can see right here, hey, I'm able to log in and, what kind of VM are you using? What are you doing? And I responded to this, and again, nothing happened, and it sat here for a couple weeks without anything happening on it. I said, well, we're having problems, so what's the best way to do this? So I'm not a programmer. I am not a programmer at all, but I can kind of read code. So I get in, I grok the C code, see what's going on. It's using an LMDB file. It's using a whole bunch of other libraries. I mean, this is truly something Jim put together that is just one of, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see some of the variables and whatnot. So I started figuring it out and looking into it, and had one of the other people look into it. We ended up moving it to a new server. I got it going. I even did some documentation. This is on the AllStar wiki that we put together. And just the various parts of the server that are there. Excuse me. And I thought it was very important to document anything that we were doing so that we can have something we can point people to if they want to get involved. At least so much so that somebody can troubleshoot it. So no new admins joined the team. These are a few people I knew from HamWham, a few other people that said, hey, I want to help out. And we got some other hosting that happened. And this, along with our architecture, had some help from several people who suggested architecture to me. And I thought it was a great idea because we have this legacy code base we're working with, and a lot of legacy services we have to provide. Use a database as a mediation layer and have it geo-redundant, because we're not doing a ton of writes to the database that are going to be really locking the same row at the same time to do updates. It's mainly going to be a single server doing an update once every minute or something of a particular row. That said, the database schema is not great. As it was on the SEAL server, the original California server, it had a lot of problems with the schema, indexes that weren't there that we had to fix. So we got two new kind of VM locations, Fenton, Michigan, FNT, and Chicago, ORD. We're using the airport codes here. And they joined up. These were people that, well, one of them I knew through HamWham, which is another project. And I said, the best way to go about this is to have a architecture that we can put out there to take advantage of donated servers. Because Jim was very big on taking advantage of people that donated servers to him. He had a lot of physical servers, and we went to more of a VM and orchestration architecture. So using Docker where we could was preferred. The old version of Asterisk that was running some of the database stuff had to happen on the actual VM itself, so we orchestrated some of that. Basically, our design here, which was, again, run in a VM environment, do auto failure and detection and restore via DNS. So the DNS was really important for our failover. Essentially, and I'll show you here our overview here. We had in the center here, you see this green MariaDB cluster. That was a real-time cluster between all the databases. And the asterisk running at each location. So we had a TPA, we had an FNT and an ORD part of it. We had various web servers over there to serve the node list. And the way all this worked for availability was register.allstarlink.org went through DNS. Each server updated it. I think it was every 30 seconds or every 60 seconds saying, hey, I'm still here. And that's how it all knew that it was still there. And if it timed out for, I think if it missed 3 or if it missed 4 of those updates, it would automatically time out after a minute or two. And the server would fall out of the cluster, we'd get an alarm, and everybody would be repointed, and it would just happen very gracefully. That actually worked. It was pretty cool. I'd never set this up before, and was happy it was working. It didn't work initially, but it was pretty good. So going into 2018, Todd Lesser, KM6 RPT actually, he got his license. He was a friend of, well, not a friend, a business associate of Jim Dixon. And he got his license on his own, and I was talking to him a little bit because he was helping some of the stuff after Jim passed. And he went out and got his license and said, hey, I got this repeater at my business here. What do I do with it? So I actually helped him configure it and get it under his call sign, get the node transferred, and take care of all that. And we talked a little bit more and actually had a bit of a working relationship, and I thought he might be a good fit for getting on the organizational side of things. Around the same time, I was becoming very frustrated with the AllStarLink board in action. We had a 501c3 stuff we had to do. We had to have some updates to the articles of incorporation legally required for 501c. I mean, this is all like very, very, very simple basic stuff that is kind of boilerplate business. Hey, we're a nonprofit. We need to have something that says no self-inurement, no distribute, we can't pay directors, things like that. So Tim joined the board around the same time that Steve Zingman left. He resigned and he was out. So Tim Sawyer, he joined. He wrote Allmon, wrote some, was involved on the tech side since day one. He said, I want to be on the board. Okay, let's get you on the board. We have to have 3 people. And he had known a gentleman by the name of Pete Elke, WI6H, who had known Jim before and wanted to be involved. Said, hey, I'm not technical, but I'm familiar with AllStarLink and I'm good at getting people together and running the kind of project side of things. Great. Okay, let's do that. And the bulk point here, which is we got new services going. We stood up RT, which was done pretty quickly. Integrated it with the database for user login, email, which I already had an email server that was working, so I just said use that server. It was easier than trying to redo it. And we did NMS, nodes list, just a bunch of stuff. And we migrated everything that we could into these Docker containers. Can't say enough good things about that. I actually learned it to get the wiki going and everything else. It was fun. So we did deploy the new reg servers, registration servers on August 12th. That didn't go as planned. When we did testing, we found that the testing we had done only used 3 or 4 or 5 different IP addresses to come from, even though we were registering 10, 20,000 all at the same time across the DB. As soon as we got 3,000 different IP addresses hitting the server at the same time, it said fuck you and died. So in the wee hours of the morning, and of course we tried backing everything out, and the old SEAL server went into signal overload and said, I can't deal with 3,000 people hitting me all at the same time. And like, okay, well, we got to go forward. I worked with our developer to actually fix some of the stuff in ChanIX to make this happen, make it stable, and we got it working. It didn't go as smooth as I wanted, but it went pretty well. So we did some DNSSEC, and this is pretty cool. We got this going. Here's our RT email I put out. We actually put a MOP together, a method of procedure for our registration server changeover when we scheduled this. And one of the things I want to point out that we did here, we put it in Google Documents so that, this is truncated, it won't work, but in Google Documents it allows anybody to edit it and do different things to it so that we can see, hey, somebody edited it on the admin team, they added this, they deleted this, allows us to track changes. We can do the same thing in the wiki, or you can even do the same thing with Microsoft Word and revision tracking turned on, but not everybody had Word, and we try to do things as open source as we can using free software, which is very important. I think we got to kind of do what we preach, and it's a free software organization. Granted, this isn't open source, but it's Google. It's close enough. So, board member inaction. Tim actually resigned from the board in October 2018, and this was, we had some discussions. He was very miffed about various things, and the problem with Tim, he's very passive aggressive about things. So trying to do things in an open manner doesn't really jive with what he does. But he was doing a lot of coding. He was helping out on the admin team, and I got to give him some props for that, for helping. This is his reply, which is, "Hey, I don't want to be on the AllStarLink board of directors. I know little to nothing about legal and financial issues, which should disqualify me from being on any nonprofit board. He's ignorant to these matters. He's very uncomfortable with this, and he's scared of personal risks he might have as director," which is a kind of a BS argument, because Florida has extraordinarily good protections for nonprofit board members. They can't be sued personally. Organizations there, I mean, obviously you can sue anybody you want at any time, but it's a simple matter to get something dismissed. So, but he remained on the admin team, and I thought, okay, whatever, that's fine. I was getting very disjected about our ability to have inaction. So this left Pete, Kevin, and myself on the board now. And you can see some of the issues I had with inaction here. These are articles of incorporation. This is a very simple update. I actually wrote the document. I said, does anybody have input on this? Crickets. Crickets, total crickets. Nobody says anything. Okay, hey, we got to do this. We got to get this moving forward. It's a simple matter. Yes, no, can we admin it? Can we move forward with getting the 501c3 status filed? Seems pretty simple. I sent this out because I said there's no way we can deal with ASL as an organization going forward if the board doesn't want to do anything. We need to consider shutting it down because I'm not willing to be on the board anymore. We legally can't continue to operate as an organization if we can't convene a board. This is basic stuff, and nobody seems to want to do anything, so let's shut it down. Let's figure out what that's going to look like. Some of the responses I had, this is one from Tim. He's like, well, you know, we're not so hot on the idea of a professionally run and legal approach to this. You know why I quit the board, so I don't want to mess with that legal shit, or excuse me, that shit. I'm very matter of fact here. I said, legally, we cannot have AllStarLink without a corporation. When Jim ran it, it was under him, but ASL Inc. took over and assumed the role of Jim. As a nonprofit, we're transferring it back to a private person who would not be in keeping with the legal requirements of a nonprofit. We can transfer it to another nonprofit if we want. This is what a board does in any organization. You run the business aspects of the company. You know, Robert's Rules of Order, you know, the introductory chapter. What does a board do? I said, I've been involved in numerous organizations here. I don't want to flout these standards, and we have to legally do some things. It's not hard. I really didn't understand where any of the difficulty in anything being proposed coming from. So I said, this is my duty as a director, and it's also someone, you know, that's a member in several non-for-profits. So we came back and said, you know, this is from Kevin here. He says, why do we even need to be a 501c3 at all? Can't we dissolve it and just keep it running? I mean, all we're trying to do is keep a few servers running. And, you know, my point here was, well, yeah, we can, but if we keep it down and you shut it down and keep it running, somebody's going to have to be on file with PayPal. Somebody's going to have to be, you know, personally responsible for tax implications and all that stuff. So this is going to come into liability at the director level, perpetuality of the organization, and it provides a legitimate corporate structure. Okay, and so he says, well, you know, that was my response, is how are we going to maintain, you know, a working board? You know, what other legal means is there to operate in? This is basic business law. We started it, we have to continue, if ASL is going to continue. It's pretty basic stuff in my mind. But, could be wrong about that. So they came back and said, well, you want to step down from the project. If that's the case, we need to figure out somebody to take my place. I said, well, I have no choice. It's not my desire to, but unless we can change and become the board AllStarLink needs, we're spinning gears. As I put it to other people, I said, we're nothing but a octopus with roller skates. There's certainly a lot of movement, but there's no forward progress. And all this stuff came in and difficult to over. I'm like, look, simply put, we need a change or I'm out. I'm willing to give it another few months, but I'm not willing to be part of a typical ham club that doesn't do anything. If we can't get the corporate stuff, our articles, our IRS status, bank. We didn't even have a bank account done. We can move on to other things. So, of course, nothing happens. This doesn't go over very well. There's a lot of passive aggressive happenings going on, and this all happened inside the board. I have people on the admin team ask me, well, what's happening with the board? What's happening? And I'm like, well, there's nobody there. We can't even have a damn meeting because nobody will show up for it. So I resign pending another board member joining. You see this is a PGP signed message from myself saying I submit my resignation to the board effective the seating of a replacement board member. I hope this will take no longer than 30 days. There are several well-qualified candidates who have stepped forward. I would encourage you to reach out to them. And again, there were several people that did step forward at this time that said they wanted to be involved. Todd, for example, a few other people said, hey, yeah, let's get more people involved. Okay, I'm stating my reasons for it. We can't communicate effectively. The board would not get on Slack. I set up Slack for us. They wouldn't communicate there. I set up a mailing list. They wouldn't communicate there. They wouldn't show up on phone calls. So, what are we to do? And I said, hey, look, we're being attacked by these ham VoIP goons, and we had some trademark stuff that was voted on previously. I took it on and did it, got it done. I think I spent, I don't know, well over about $1,200 or $1,300 on it, all said and done. And hey, I'm willing to work on the admin team, but I'm not going to be part of the board anymore. And get somebody else on there. So this is an email I put out to the admin team, to the board as well when I stepped down, which was, hey, here's some of the good stuff we've done. And you see the final thing I'll follow up with here is I'm still around on the admin team to assist with migration, moving my responsibilities to who wants to assume these roles. Should ASL decide to move to 501c3 status, I'm still willing to continue donating colo, bandwidth, and money as well. It wasn't like I was leaving them in the lurch, at least so I thought. I just didn't want to, I couldn't legally be involved in an organization that was so poorly run. I have other stuff I'm involved in. I've been audited before. I really don't want to go through it again. And this stuff will target you. So, moving on, Todd got on the board, which is good, and started really getting on Slack and talking about, you got to have a contributor agreement and all this other stuff. And as I remember talking with him and one of our other people that operated our FNT data center, spoke with him at length. It was just like, this guy's insulting to work with. And anytime we brought up certain issues relating to the GPL and copyright, and it was extraordinarily dismissive and arrogant about that. And I was very, at this point, sorry that I had suggested that we put him on the board because, I assumed he had some background. He seemed like a decent person, but I'd never met him face to face. And unfortunately, as soon as he got that little, hey, I'm on the board member now, okay, he ran with it and really did not get free software. And my point to him, I said, I don't have time to respond and teach you the last 30 years of, the free software movement. This is like, basic stuff people should know involved in Linux and open source and especially free software. So the board has this pattern of really disrespecting the contributors and the admin team. They refuse to communicate with the admin team, refuse to use Slack, refuse to use email, refuse to even get on phone calls and stuff like that. And it was sad. So what I put here is the bike shedding begins. And that's an interesting thing. It's Parkinson's law of triviality, which is, it's an argument that members of an organization give disproportionate weight to trivial issues. And my God, if that doesn't apply to us here. I'm not going to go through it. Wikipedia has a great article on it. But it comes from the idea that these guys a committee was called to build a nuclear power plant. They were non-technical about the nuclear issues and said, oh, okay, well, hey, let's concentrate on building the bike shed for the employees, which was really funny. What I put out, what Tim put out here was this, hey, I want to do discourse and set up a community thing, and I took it on myself to go do this. And I'm like, cool, Tim, but there's like 50 other things that have to go on. But okay, yeah, you want to run with it. Kind of everybody from the admin team was of the opinion, well, dude, the email list works and works really well. What's wrong with that? We didn't want another, some of the people put it, a splitting of support again. So splitting support would mean we already have two different lists of people involved in this. We have the app RPT list. We have the other list for the people that think they invented ARM All-Star, John David and his cronies. And I said, we don't need another thing that people can't, all search very easily. And that just wasn't me. That was like pretty much the entirety of the admin team said, we got to do something here and figure out how to integrate this. One of the things Discourse does is has the ability to take in mailman lists, repost the mailman lists, and kind of sync up with the mail server. I said, okay, cool. You want to do this? Awesome. Hey, admin team, do you think it's okay for him to do this if we get it integrated with single, our common login that you already have on the website and the mail list stuff? Yeah, okay, cool. Go at it, Tim. And that's what we did. So the problem is that never happened. He threw it into production, said, well, it's good to go, just everybody gets a new, has to register and go claim their emails, and, we'll import stuff. So then finally, the other thing that happened is Kevin, one of the other board members, lied in public about me. This is something I've never talked about before. It's just really, really sad, actually, because I've tried to conduct myself. I'm forthright and I'm honest. This is what he says. This is when I submitted my resignation. They put out some stuff about it, and it was the only public thing that I'd ever agreed to, and it wasn't exactly agreed to. So he says, hey, this met with your approval. Why did you comment back on the list about this? And then he comes in and says, the reason that people aren't on the board is because Steve and Mike Zingman both left AllStarLink because of you. Dave Carr and Jeff DiPaolo resigned from the development team. They were never on the dev team. Steve Henke wouldn't join because of you. I've kept my mouth shut in an effort to work with you, but I've run out of cheeks to turn. So, and he's like, please don't comment like this again. And so I said, well, that's interesting. So since several people in here were quoted, I said, let's reach out to them and see what they said. And I did reach out to a number of the people. They did write me back. Those were private emails, but both Jeff and Mike Zeman said that this was not it. This was not the reason. This was totally wrong, blah, 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 blah. So here, proof positive that Kevin has, lied about this. He's not a good person. So, 2019, a lot of the stuff with the board keeps going on. And nothing's happening. This is early part. I remember it was, I want to say, this was a January time frame. December, that time part. The operator of the FMT data center saw what was going on, had these conversations with several board members on Slack, and says, you know what, I'm done with this. You guys don't want to do this. I'm giving my notice. You got 2 weeks to get your shit off my servers. Have fun. Which was, great. Now, admin team actually reached out to him, talked to him, and said, otherwise. We got him to give us a pause on this and said, well, I'm not giving you anything more, but we'll keep it in operation, because he didn't want to make more work for the admin team. I really thank him for that. But at no time did the board actually reach out and say, oh my God, one of our major donors is stopping our donations. Somebody should reach out to him and talk to him and see how we can fix this. Yeah, that didn't actually happen. If there's one thing a board should do, it's be in charge of fundraising. So Jim resigned from the admin team. He resigned in March. Was one of the admin people. He was done with it, and that was sad to see him go. Now, this is the funny thing. So we finally figured out who was providing the phone portal numbers. I tracked it down, got a hold of the guy, said, hey, what's going on? One of our issues is we had no idea who was terminating the phone numbers, other than the major, we could look up who owned the phone number from a LEC person or the phone company perspective, but that didn't get us a contact person. And Jim always set this up as a donations from other people, and he was very compartmentalized in that, so we didn't know who it was. And of course, all that knowledge was up in his head when he passed. Well, we got the person that was doing it. I said, hey, we want to spin up a few more servers. Hey, we got 3 data centers that spin up 3 servers, make it fault tolerant. Can you set up a hunt group with some SIP? Yeah, not a problem. And he actually came back, did that, gave us some new numbers for testing. And it was, I think, one of the other main people on the dev team and myself set up some, well, I know it was the other dev person, because we were running Asterisk 1.8 and some VMs. Set it up, got it going, and we're doing testing with it. So at this time, I put out a thing on the admin list. I said, hey, here's some new numbers to try, give it a shot. And I get inundated with emails from 3 different board members. I have 2 people from the board calling me, spending an hour on the phone with each to say that, no, we haven't changed the phone number without their approval. Did anybody think to try the old phone number that was still working? No. Well, they just completely did not understand what was happening here. The old phone portal was still up and going. Why the hell do I got to waste my time talking to people that have no idea what's going on and didn't even test it themselves? It's sad. So that was really depressing. The next thing that happened is this node number extension stuff came. We were looking, hey, we're going to start running into the 50,000 node numbers soon. We could plan out what our run rate was on the node numbers. And Tim said, hey, I got an idea. Okay, let's do it. And the admin guy said, cool, let's figure out something here. And I put a Google document together of kind of how I envisioned it working, some of the different options we had, from, hey, let's document what we're doing first, code-wise, and then we can code. Because if you don't have documentation as to what your code needs to do, don't have a spec written, you have serious problems when it comes to coding and making things interoperate. Well, I got a response back on that, which was a PDF file, and, well, I took some of what you did, and here it is. I said, well, cool, how are we supposed to work on a PDF file? If you recall before, when we did some of the DNS stuff, I said, hey, here's a PDF or when we did the method of procedure for the Reg upgrade, we did that as a Google document so anybody could comment on it. And yeah, that was very passive aggressive, and he just really didn't want to work with anybody on it. And I said, you know what, I really don't care then, go do it, whatever, make something work. He got something kind of working, but there was a lot of stuff that was not part of it, whatever, is what it is. to me, it wasn't that important that I was going to die on that hill fighting about it. So the cool thing we came up with, I posted some stuff about this on the admin team list, and said, hey, we have this registration process for DNS and SQL. It would do DNS-based registration. I spoke with several people that were doing DNS stuff. They said, hey, there's some different records you can use, some stuff that's natively supported in Asterisk. Excuse me. And started looking at something called Power DNS, which is a new authoritative DNS server. It didn't have all the kind of the bullshit that goes with bind. And it was really clean. We could back-end it into a MySQL stored procedure. It was very, very hackable or configurable, I should say, not really hackable. Reminded me a lot of how kind of Qmail worked. So we did that. Here's my email response to the list. I just said, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's some stuff. See if this tests out. The cool thing was we actually wrote a spec about this before it got even written and deployed. I didn't know SQL. I certainly didn't know stored procedures. And I sat down and I wrote it. I figured it out, got it going. I sent it over, found some of the issues in the database, learned about indexes, learned about proper database autonomy and things like that. Made that work in conjunction because Tim knew a lot about the database. That's what we did. And I'm like, hey, this is actually an interim. We added some stuff later on. I got further down into it and I asked for some assistance from Tim. I said, hey, Tim, can you look at my stored procedure? He looked at it, he said, well, what the hell is a cursor? And he was my go-to SQL expert at the time. I said, okay, well, let me ask some other people, and had them look at it. We got it working. I was like, this is cool. There was a number of different stored procedures that had to be done. And we ran into the problem of, this is cool, it works, but it doesn't scale. So we had to rethink everything and start over yet again. But this time, we knew a lot more and we learned, and we actually got something working that was it was called a trigger. So when the reg server updates, it automatically builds the DNS records for that update and just stores it in the table. Reads under MariaDB are much, much faster because you don't have to update 3 or 4 servers at the same time across the internet. You only have to do one server and read your local copy. So all this stuff had been going on, this continued disrespect from the board. I had it by August 5th. I said, you know what, I'm done with the admin team, I'm out. I signed out of Slack. I unsubscribed from everything. I said, I'm happy to, well, here's my email. I said, look, I'm happy to provide hosting, but that's the extent of it. I don't want to be involved in this anymore. I'll transition. I'm out of IRC. I'm out of the mailing lists. I'm out of RT. I'm out of GitLab. I said, Stacy, one of our dev people, really the number 2 person when it comes to knowing everything, has access to everything. And hey, I've already scaled up my hosting for this. I'm paying an extra $50 a month to make certain I have a 100 meg commit on my 95th percentile billing. Bandwidth ain't cheap. And I took over doing some stuff. I said, I've still got a few things that are pending. I'm gonna get those loose ends cleared up. I think one of my last loose ends that I wanted to do was get a working service monitor for the dev team use, for Stacy specifically, and get a kit put together for that. So let me, give me 1 second here. Oop. That's the wrong one. Okay, we'll move this way. Okay, so 2019, this is where Mike, KB8GZL, yeah, KB8GZL, ZGL, something like that. Anyways, he got on the board, and he really starts to order the admin team around. And a lot of people don't like that. And so I like, that's pretty funny. Okay, man, whatever. I'm still kind of talking to people, but again, I'm not on Slack, I'm out of it. Board demands control of all the DNS and domain names using a single password. And I'm like, are you all idiots? That's not what you do. Well, here, I'll show you the email. They move everything over to a Gmail account. I'm like, awesome, okay, everybody can see what you're doing now. That's brilliant. We went from having role-based accounts, so if somebody needed access to the registrar, they had an individual account, versus, well, we got to have this and do this. Okay, whatever. You know what? I signed over, and when I had instantiated everything at Gandhi, the reason we used Gandhi as a registrar, and it was my decision, I made it, was the fine-grained separation we can have in organizational accounts. So I can create allstarlink.org, have my account that's tied to myself be a manager, an owner for it, have somebody else come along, have their account be a manager, be an owner, and we can easily see who does what. There's an audit trail. It's so very important for this kind of stuff. So, October, FNT gets pulled due to disrespect to the team. Notice is given, and second time, it just is what it is. The guys can't talk him back. I said, okay, great. There's a Seattle server that stood up, and they stand it up as a primary site for the database for DNS, because DNS is backed into our database as well. My servers provide secondary DNS. I have 3 secondary DNS servers, 1 primary server. They're geo-redundant across the US, and even gave login on those servers to the admin team if they needed it. So let's see. Okay, so Mike and Tim continue to break DNS on the database. Tim is doing some development. He does not, I find, does not really understand too much about MySQL and record locking and all the stuff we have going on. He's writing some code that whenever it makes a change, locks the entire table. And keep in mind, we have 3,000 users updating it every, 1 time a minute, so it's like 200 updates a second, something like that. DNS breaks for various reasons, and again, I'm not on the mailing list, I'm not on the alerts from the network monitoring system. My notice here is, hey, I got an error notice from my node via email from cron, because I have email set up on my node, I'm not a simp. And it says, hey, I can't find this, what's going on? And I get into my node and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I'm like, hold on, why is it not looking up? And I realize, oh crap, what's going on? Oh, they removed all the secondary DNS servers, and the 2 primary servers require the database to be up. Of course, they crashed the database, so now there's no secondary servers and no copy, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I sent this out to the admin team. I'm still on I still could post to the admin list. I just did disabled my subscription, and went through it. This is the meme I put together for it. I love this image, which is Johnny Knoxville when the ASL board takes over running DNS. It's just the most happy clusterfuck that there is. So some of the ongoing issues we've had with the board here is Todd Lesser, one of the board members. He runs a CLEC. I call him, he's been the consigliere. If you don't know what that is, go watch some mob movie or something. Basically means he's the lawyer to the mob. Guy is ignorant of the GPL in like the last 30 years of the free software movement. It's, he is. And from a technical standpoint, he doesn't understand really Asterisk or how AllStarLink works, but he thinks he does, and that's the danger. Then there's this other desire of non-technical people to have power over technical things. And okay, yeah, you think about this, where it actually comes from is the desire to control when you don't trust what's being done. I always move the wrong thing, hold on. As I said, I'm doing OBS on my laptop here. So this is because they don't trust what the admin team's doing. It's a clear vote of no confidence to the people that are involved in the admin team, who've done nothing but keep stuff up and going in spite of bad decisions. So the I got to move myself again here. You know what? I'm just going to disable it. You don't need to see me for this. So further disrespect to the admin team structure by adding unknown people to the team. There's Andy Laup, NB8P. He runs a company that does some stuff with telecom. Said, hey, I'm an asterisk expert and I know all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Well, they just went and added him on the admin team. You know, he never even had an AllStarLink login, wasn't even familiar with it until he got added to the admin team. Didn't ask the admin team for this. And you know, that's a big part of it. That's just the disrespect of the ingrained org structure of the meritocracy that's there. But you know, I'm out of it at this point, so I'm just sitting back popping popcorn. So I did a records request actually from AllStarLink, and they gave me some of the meeting minutes because you know the meetings were supposed to be open to everybody to attend. That lasted for about 1 minute or 2 minutes, something like that, and then they closed it all up again for everybody. So based on the meeting minutes, from the from beginning of January here until October or November, Mike's only been present. Keep in mind, this is the person that's supposed to be the board member that is the liaison to the admin team and understand the technical side of stuff. He's only been present for 60% of the board meetings. And Tim's been there 100% of the time. Pete's been there a respectable 91% of the time. Even Dave's been there 87% of the time. The other people that understand the least have been there the least, which is understandable. So Mike actually loves to badmouth the TPA facility about the ongoing instability and DDoS. We had an outage for about 30 minutes where we did get DDoSed. My uplink is a gig uplink, and what happens is with the DDoS, they just give you more bandwidth than you can handle, and it saturates your uplink and knocks you offline. We've resolved it in about 30 minutes. We have a very good relationship with our network architecture team and network engineering team of our facility, and that worked out really, really well. And I said, hey, we're back online, and I did send out an email saying this happened. I got in, I looked at the database, looks like it's good. Let me know if y'all have any problems. Sorry about that. This stuff happens. But it was responded to very quickly. I pride myself on uptime, on not taking things down. I work in the telecom industry. I know what uptime is and how important it is. I'm in an organization where we run our co-location. I have other people that are in there that are paying good sums of money that need uptime. When that happens, you better bet it's going to be responded to very quickly, you know, any time of the day or night. So, hey, there's this idea, let's move to the cloud. And simple is good. Let's not actually work to understand things because, you know, even the most complex problem becomes simple. We had done a lot of this as the admin team just to unwrap this onion that was AllStarLink. Well, XKCD here is hilarious because AllStarLink, the code we have and what we're doing isn't really well suited to a cloud environment. It wasn't developed with that in mind. Really wasn't even developed with the idea of virtual machines or Docker. So it's like, I've always thought about the cloud. What a huge infamous network of servers somewhere. Yeah, but you know, everyone bums server from everyone else. In the end, they're all getting it here. He's like, well, how? You're on a cable modem. It's like, there's a lot of caching. You know, should cords be stretched across the room? He's like, yeah, of course, it has to reach the server. It's like, well, what if somebody trips on it? Well, sometimes stuff happens by accident. Well, I don't know anybody like that. and that's the, you know, that's the problem, especially as you move to the cloud. I'm not saying there isn't a reason to do some stuff in the cloud, but it's not the uptime and reliability panacea that uneducated people make it out to be. So my other ongoing issues I've had with AllStar since I've torn into this has been, well, hey, there's mismanagement of the finances. Where'd the money go? Because there's sure as shit nothing in the documentation that we have that shows that there's been any appropriations for any money being spent. And I was able to take a look at our PayPal and bank balances from 1/20 through almost the end of October. And what's interesting about this is right here you can see, hey, we moved $1,000 from PayPal into the bank, but then next month it's not in the bank. What the hell? There's nothing in the document about that and any documentation about that. Where'd that go? One of the reasons I would really be concerned about giving money to AllStarLink going forward. So there's a serious conflict of interest in the ASL board as well, which is Kevin sells product designed to work with HamVoIP. Kevin has a pattern of killing discussions that show HamVoIP in a negative light. Holy crap. Look at this. This is sold by Kevin. Right there at the very bottom of the screen. Hey, this works with HamVoIP and it's tested and fully supported. Yeah, that's an issue. Ongoing poor communications and pathetic openness of communications. That is huge. This is actually kind of funny. So I made an edit to the wiki several months back in September where I said, hey, the admin team no longer functions like this because the board has done what they're doing. And it sat there since September. Well, in first part of November or end of November, first part of December, you can log in and see on the admin committee site. It's all there. Tim actually banned me from the wiki, which was kind of funny. And I'm like, well, this is funny, but based on the wiki works, he banned the IP address of the NGINX proxy, banning everybody else too. Showing once again the board has no idea how stuff works. Brilliant, guys, really brilliant. And when I put this together, I really had high hopes for AllStar. I wanted it to be a strong project, but the problem is the people running it, from the board perspective, don't respect those who understand it. Don't even trust those who understand it. The admin and dev teams did everything we could to support ASL in spite of the relentless attacks against us by the board. The board has promised things, it's going to change time and time again, but it's turned even more insular, it's become protecting itself, and oh well, let's fuck these people. And on top of it, I can't stand for good friends of mine to be mistreated and have their names sullied by the board of AllStarLink. It's sad, really. Now, my intent was to keep my stepping down private and let ASL manage their affairs with little interruption. Short of, I think, one thing I posted when I said, hey, I'm off the board, I've kept my fucking mouth shut about this. I mean, I've got into it with John David and his cronies and his people doing copyright infringement, but board stuff with AllStarLink, I've shut up about that externally to the organization. Now, this is kind of funny. They actually publicly shamed me on the AllStarLink website that had hosting and server space provided by me since August in the Tampa data center. I'm just like, yeah, okay, guys, that's funny. Now, they've done the same since I decided to stop providing co-location to the project. What the fuck am I supposed to do? I mean, I actually went and wrote them a pretty detailed document saying, hey, I want to stop providing co-location to you. I waited for a meeting to happen. The outcome of that meeting didn't go very well. It was the same shit. I said, okay, you know what? I'm done. Why am I spending several $100s a month on this? And I did fulfill one of the last things I said I was going to do, which was get the dev team a full service monitor and kit and everything else to do alignment to radios. So I'm out, and I actually was going to give them until December 31st, which would be nearly a month to migrate stuff. And was encouraged by several other members on the admin team to say, you know what, we should do it quicker than that. And I said, okay. So that's why we have the organization like it is, and why we did that. But that document that was sent out, that was an internal document. That wasn't something that I was intending to share, but they wanted it shared, so that's fine. But I'm not going to have my name brought into question by, oh, hey, he's only giving us 2 weeks. Well, that's what the guys asked for. So this is the point where I get into Q&A, and let me open up the Q&A here. Okay, let's see. I got a whole bunch of comments on here. Let's see, Roll Tide. So the gentleman, let's see. Kevin Custer, he says he has proof otherwise. I don't know what he has proof otherwise of. Let's see. You're worried about a board member leaving a board that doesn't exist in the company that doesn't exist. Quit and move on from quality content. Well, no, I'm worried about being a board member when I was on the board of a company that wasn't doing things in keeping with the law and its legal requirements. And I said I'm not going to be part of that. Let's see, Peter, convert the PDF to doc and change on tracking and then send it back. Well, yeah, I like formatting, and I had done a lot of stuff in formatting and made certain it was good. I wasn't going to do that, and it just wasn't going to work. I did try taking some of that stuff and going back and forth on that, and that's why I gave up. Qmail and DJB DNS, that's great, but Qmail is a pain in the ass to patch, and I gotta say I liked it for a number of years, but Postfix has been pretty good to me, along with Zimbra, and Power DNS is just so much easier to run. Even the new resolver they have is damn well supported. I really like it. Okay, somebody deleted their profile. Yeah, the single password thing is pretty dumb. Network solution, yeah, well, nobody's going to use network solutions. I mean, I mean, that's just horrible. Let's see. CLEC not knowing how to provision, well, that's whatever. Kevin Custer, 25% of my sales go to radio adapters, which goes to AllStarLink. No other manufacturer directly supports AllStarLink. Being compatible with ham VoIP is not illegal. Well, no, Kevin, it's not. But the fact that you want to control what other people say is personally reprehensible. So you have more money in the Tampa server than anyone else, including you. That server you pulled out from under AllStarLink, a server that you don't own. Well, no, I don't. Florida Simulcast Group owns the server. It was, I mean, I think that was very straightforward when I put that out there. I said, hey, look, I'm not going to donate to AllStarLink until we're 501c3 because, hey, the board isn't getting off its ass to make decisions that we need to. And I put my foot down along with you know, the other people that have said I'm not donating until you're 501c3 anymore. So, you know, that's what it took to get it done. Now, and that happened after I was off the board. That's how long it was. So the only thing I could do, and I actually convened the Florida Simulcast Group board. I said, hey, these guys want to donate some money to us for us to buy a server for their use. Okay, that's fine. I was very explicit. I said, now, from a legal standpoint, FSG, Florida Simulcast Group, owns it. And we're going to put it to use. It's not just going to sit there unused. So, you know, I don't know what you, I mean, it's a $300 server, man. The fuck do you want? So, I think that's all that's there. So, that's what I got from responses to questions. If anybody has anything, let me know. Let's see. Well, I don't know. I can say ham VoIP is run by, well, criminals. John David McGough is a criminal. He's committing criminal copyright enforcement, or infringement, excuse me. Yes, Kevin, it's a $300 server. That's depreciated value, what it's worth. Do you expect me to, like, write you a check for the, I think it was like $800 or something we spent on it. I donated money to that. You want to talk about donating money to AllStarLink? Let's really not go there, man. I've put tons of money into this. I've put a spreadsheet together of what I've put into this. I've been fucked on being able to take my donations off my taxes because of AllStarLink's inability to get 501c3 status. I mean, you know, really, that's what it's worth. Go look on eBay. You got the specs to it. It's in an email. Okay, well, that's fine. And yeah, I mean, you want to argue about it? So. Well, ASL isn't exactly right in the cloud. The actual phone servers had some issues on so from our perspective, from the perspective of an admin team, there's the phone portal server. Basically what it does is it listens sets up a SIP trunk, somebody dials in, the phone provider talks to the SIP server. SIP server dials out to, hits the extension on the asterisk server. Asterisk server plays its phone portal stuff, authenticates the user, then sets up an IAX connection to the actual AllStar node. And it looks like it's coming from another node in AllStar land. And then sets up a conference bridge, and that's really how everything works. I mean, that's the thing about AllStar. Everything is a conference bridge. So, the problem with that is some of the timing issues in a VM become a problem for anything like that. So registration, that's so long as you hit the registration server once every 10 minutes, you're golden. There's no actual real-time stuff that has to happen. What we did on the phone server was actually pin the phone server to a CPU, so it was taking an entire CPU. But anyways, that's my overview. That's my kind of high points over the last 3 years of AllStarLink. I wish things would end up better than they did, but I have absolutely no confidence in the board to run things. I have no confidence that they understand what they're going to have to do, and I'm dejected by the whole thing. So. Well, no, ASL can't merge with HamVoIP because the people involved in HamVoIP are, they're criminals. They are committing criminal copyright infringement against the code that's out there that Jim Dixon wrote, that other people wrote, that many other people wrote, including Digium for AllStar. As soon as Jim died, they said, hey, this is our time. We can take it over and we can run everything. Not only that, I mean, John David is a liar. He is a huckster and a charlatan. He's been involved in several, I've done some research into the man, and what I have, I really don't like to say. So the fact that he's saying, oh, well, hey, I did all this work and I created all this, well, the stuff I've actually seen that they've put together is not secure. You don't know what it's doing, and it doesn't work very well. So I don't get where it comes from other than we support idiot hams. And I think that's my biggest thing I have an issue with is people that just, well, I just want it to work. Okay, well, go in VI, do this. Oh, that's too complicated. I'm not going to run. Why don't you make it run under Windows? Well, go fuck yourself. That's what I say. You don't want to take any time to learn anything. I mean, why would you expect somebody to volunteer time to try and help you? And I've helped a lot of people out with a lot of stuff over the years. I mean, I know from a perspective of doing tickets in the ticketing system, like I was closing tickets, several other people were doing a lot of work. We're helping people out. I mean, I can't count the number of times I've got on TeamViewer, I've got on SSH, I've got on screen via SSH to help somebody work on their node or figure something out. So I don't have a problem doing that. I don't mind helping people. So, anyways, that's all. I got to get going here. I'm feeling a lot better than I was because I was sick for several days here with a stomach virus. and hopefully I'll get home tomorrow on my flight. So, anyways, well, the source code, the actual ASL 1.01 source code is available. It's on GitHub under AllStarLink. And I'm certain I'd say if you ask on the mailing list, but there's a dev list, but nobody that's the other problem. Nobody that's on the admin team actually uses community. So, there's that. Hit up some of the people they'll get you some of the newer stuff that we're messing with too. And I've actually torn into it. I've learned a lot of code. So, anyways, guys, I got to get out of here. I got a flight in the morning going home, and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever your particular persuasion is. And I'll see you all later. 73s. This is Brian Fields, amateur radio call sign, W9CR.